Greetings, welcome to the channel, Overlay Tuna. All you new subscribers, thank you for coming over. Welcome, and it's good to have you. So today, finding a suitable ant mound to cast. Now, a lot of people think, oh, it's just dirt on top of the ground. You dump some molten aluminum into it. Well, it's not actually that simple. I wish that it were. Unfortunately, it's not. Number one, you have to know what type of ant you're going after. You have to know what type of nest you want to cast, because there are several different types of ants, from carpenter ants, which you'll never cast because they build their nest in wood, in trees and stuff like that. In which there will be a video coming probably this winter when I cut one down that has carpenter ants in it that has destroyed a tree, and rather than it fall on mother's house, I need to go ahead and get it cut down. But it is providing a little bit of shade because very few parts of it are still alive. So, but I know that there's a carpenter ant nest in it because I can peel back the bark in certain areas, and there's just hundreds of ants that want to come spilling out. So those you'll never get. You have fire ants, and fire ants build these big mounds on the ground, and there are thousands of them in that nest, if not hundreds of thousands. And it's a large mound, and it has many different entranceways. And when it is casted, it comes out, and I don't have one because the last one I had, I donated it to a school for science. So, I mean, it was about 2 foot deep, about 5 pounds of aluminum, but it's a series, just hundreds of interconnected tunnels that just burrow down through the ground. Those ant colonies, that's just one nest. Now, if you can find a colony to where there's 4 or 5 of those nests in a long linear line, and you can cast them all and pull it all up as one unit, but it takes a lot. So those are the fire ants. You also have, I call them piss ants. I'm not sure exactly what the name of them is, and I'm talking about the ants in South Carolina. They make little round mounds. It looks like a volcano. There's one single hole in there. You can cast those, and they make like a little, almost looks like a bonsai tree if you flip it upside down. It's exactly what it looks like. It's an aluminum bonsai tree. Then you have one other one. It's my favorite. It's the carpenter ant nest. And these guys are just amazing at the nest that they build. I do have one of those. So let me show you. So this is a basic design of how carpenter ants build their nest. Now, this was just one hive here. And you see there's pretty much just one tunnel system that kind of spirals down, and they create these little flats, and these little flats is where they store seeds. They're called harvester ants because they go around and they grab seeds from different things. They're big red ants. They hurt when they bite, but farmers hate them. And at one time, NASA satellites had picked up huge circles in the ground in the middle of a kind of a desert area. Not a desert area, I'm sorry. A remote area. And they couldn't figure out what it was, so they sent somebody down there, and what they found out was it was just hundreds of harvester ant nests. But the ground is always flat. They don't build a mound. Bare. Usually you find these guys in a flat, open field. This one here, I found this one, it was in 3 acres. I had to search 3 acres in order to find one. This one was actually a little bit taller than that. This was a little over 2 foot, about 5 pounds of aluminum. This is one of my first anthill castings, and I did this with actually, believe it or not, a charcoal foundry. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Got a lot of burns on that one. It took 3 people 45 minutes to dig this whole thing up, but it was definitely an interesting thing. So all these spots here, all that was, it just had sand caked in it, and when I sprayed it off and found that design, it was actually beautiful. So like I said, it's always good to know what you're going for. If you find a big hole and you're like, all right, I'm going to cast me, and you're expecting a fire ant nest to come out, and you wind up getting a carpenter ant nest, you're going to be like, what the hell? Where I am in South Carolina, ant nests used to be prevalent. They were everywhere. Fire ants and carpenter ants were the 2 main ones, and there were mounds everywhere. Well, they started becoming a huge nuisance problem because you just couldn't get rid of them. The poison started becoming ineffective and stuff like that. So the state of South Carolina decided, hey, this is what we'll do. We'll bring in a predator. So they brought in, not aardvarks, armadillos. They brought in armadillos, 15-band armadillo, which to fix this problem, and then they continue to use poisons, and so the ant population of South Carolina is actually very low. So finding one, a suitable one, is not like you just go outside and there one is. And I'll explain that why it's kind of hard to find one, because yeah, we do have a lot of ants around here. You can't just cast any one you see. Looks like a lot's gone into it already, but we're not done. Let's go see if we can find one in the yard. There's one here, and this is a fire ant nest. Well, this is a dead one. This one's been dead for a few years. As you can see, there's really nobody home. Not coming out. Now, can you cast dead anthills? Sure. Should you? No, because ants have to maintain the inside of their nest. So if you've ever watched a nest, you'll notice it gets bigger, and there's several things that cause the ant nest to change. One being moisture content in the ground. The drier it gets, the looser the soil will get, and they'll have collapses in which they have to dig out, and they'll dig new tunnels and stuff like that. But if nobody's home to maintain it, it goes to hell. Here's one, and I believe this is another fire ant nest. Let's see if anybody's home. That would be a yes, they're home. Coming out by the thousands. And that's a fire ant nest. We can't cast this one. Why? Right there. They will dig in and they will burrow down around roots and whatnot, and getting your casting out will be hell. You'll wind up having to dig a huge hole around the casting, cutting out roots, and then you can't get the roots out of the casting, and it's a nightmare. I've tried it. It does not work well at all. Hey, here's one. See if anybody's home. Hello? Look, they're home. Can we cast this one? No, we cannot. And why not? Because it's not on my property. Now, I could go and ask permission, but what am I going to say? Hey, you have an ant nest on your property, and I'd like to go over there and heat some aluminum up to about, 1,300 to 1,500 degrees and pour it in the ground around all your stuff that can catch fire. Is that okay with you? What do you think the answer is going to be? Can anybody tell me how deep and how wide this ant nest goes? There is no mathematical equation for it. You don't know, especially just starting off. Now, after you've done a few, you can kind of judge and say, okay, it's going to take about this much. I ran across ant nests that I've looked at and said, I'm going to need to be able to melt down 15 pounds of aluminum, which is a lot of aluminum to melt down, and it would take a lot to do it, because you need to do it in one pour. Trying to do it in more than one pour, you don't know that the aluminums are going to fuse together, if they're going to stay hot enough between the melts. So I've done it one time before. I got the second batch really, really, really hot, actually too hot, and I poured it and it burnt the stuff up under it, but it melted it enough to kind of fuse it together. But it just was an ugly, ugly casting. So you don't know how much you're going to need. I can't cast this one because, and this would be a perfect one. You see how it's built up in a nice mountain shape, and you would take and dig out just a little place up top and to hold a pool of aluminum, and you would dump it down on that so that it would go down in there. But this is on my neighbor's property, and Wayne's not going to agree with that, so I'm not even going to ask. So, as you see, there's a lot more to casting these things than just going outside and dumping metal in a hole. There's a lot more to it, and that is why you tend to notice that they are kind of on the expensive side, because so much has to go into it. There's a problem. Also, you need to have a foundry that is small enough to carry somewhere. You need to have a heat source that you can use in a remote area. Now, Venturi burners are perfect for that. If you have a truck that you can get out in the woods or wherever you're casting, that you can plug an AC inverter in and use a forced air burner, that works. I don't think I have found one that I want to cast for my boss's mother yet. None of those are not my idea of suitable. So I'm going to continue to look, check with a few friends. I have a friend that lives on a farm, and in cow pastures, ant nests get huge. That's kind of a rundown of how to select ant nests to cast. If you want a little small one, this little piss ant nest, they're perfect, man. And you got a little small casting, and stand about that tall. Go come out about that wide, and they're neat looking. They look like little bonsai trees once you flip them upside down. So, but that's just generally a rundown, and so we'll get into the whole setup and casting as soon as I find one that's suitable. Being I do some work for the electric company, they may let me go down a power line and do one. But that's a big if. That's no guarantee. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. A little bit of information. Like I said, next time we'll be going into the setup, the casting of one, and trying to figure out exactly how much it's going to take. I measure them by hand. When it comes to carpenter ants, as far as fire ants, they're just so unpredictable. It's hard to say because they could have a whole nother nest just 3 foot away, and what you think is going to be a 2 pounds of aluminum cast may turn into a 16-pound cast because it's going all the way to the other side. And then you run out of aluminum and it disappears, and start digging it up, and that's when you find this tunnel that goes over 3 foot. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like and subscribe button, and Hakuna Matata.